Canadian bulldog for wrestling merchandise and memories. That's merchandiseandmemories.com. And September, through our site, it's Arcade Month. And as a result, we've compiled a list of the top 50 pro wrestling video games. We've recruited our resident grappling gamer known as Adam Zimmerman to help us with this list, and we looked at the following criteria. How memorable is the title, years or even decades later? What type of impact did it make on the industry? How innovative was the title compared to previous iterations or even competing game lines? And how much did it help wrestling fans gain a deeper appreciation for the sport? Just before we get started, wanted to let you know that Wrestling Merchandise and Memories has more than 100 unique top 50 lists on its site. Everything from wrestling rivalries to tag teams to WrestleMania moments. Check it out at bit.ly/top 50 lists. Number 50, ECW Anarchy Rulz was released in 2000 and was the second and final video game release by Extreme Championship Wrestling. Available on PlayStation and Dreamcast, the game used a similar engine to WWF War Zone, adding in violent match types to replicate the rowdy fun of ECW. Number 49, WWF Super WrestleMania was released in 1992 for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis systems. The console game featured a roster of wrestlers including Hulk Hogan, Ted DiBiase, and Randy Savage, and included for the first time a Survivor Series feature. Number 48, World Championship Wrestling was the first console game for WCW, released in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Featuring NWA stars such as Ric Flair, Sting, and the Road Warriors, the game allowed players to choose their own movesets and introduced us to the dreaded WCW Master. Number 47, WWF Royal Rumble was released in 1993 for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. The sequel to WWF Super WrestleMania, this game featured a Royal Rumble with a roster of a dozen top stars. Players could use steel chairs as weapons and knock the referee out. Number 46, WWF Raw was released in 1994 for Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear, and was the final WWF title of the 16-bit era. Unlike previous games, Raw had an arcade-like grappling system, over-the-top finishing moves, and even a female competitor, Luna Vachon. Number 45, Backyard Wrestling 2, There Goes the Neighborhood, was released in 2004 on PlayStation and Xbox. The title had an underground feel to it, battling with plunder in people's backyards, and a roster that included the Insane Clown Posse, New Jack, The Sandman, Vampiro, Sanjay Dutt, and yes, several adult film stars. Number 44, Tecmo World Wrestling was released in 1989 for the NES. The roster was based entirely on fictitious characters such as El Tigre, Jackie Lee, and Boris Chekhov. The lower third of the screen featured the commentary of Tom Talker, and cutscenes were shown when a wrestler performed their finisher. Number 43, Legends of Wrestling 2 was released in 2002 for PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox. The game featured a variety of legends that were unsigned by WWE at the time, including Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Bret Hart, and Bruno Sammartino. While the gameplay lagged the WWE titles at the time, it still boasted a huge roster. Number 42, WCW SuperBrawl Wrestling was released in 1994 for Super Nintendo and was a vast improvement over previous WCW titles. It had a memorable character select screen where you'd hear such comments as, "I'm bad! A thirst for high impact!" and "It's not my fault!" Number 41, WWE Survivor Series was released in 2004 for the Game Boy Advance. Unlike previous handheld console games, Survivor Series boasted different match types and a story mode, plus a roster of 16 wrestlers including John Cena, The Undertaker, Chris Jericho, and Shawn Michaels. Number 40, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 was released in 2009 on a variety of gaming consoles. While it was the latest in a long series of SmackDown vs. Raw titles, this edition introduced a third brand, ECW, and an innovative creative storyline mode, as well as a half a dozen new or retooled match options. Number 39, WWE Legends of WrestleMania was released in 2009 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It was a departure from the SmackDown vs. Raw series, and then it focused on WWE legends and main eventers in dream match scenarios. You could also have interference from legendary managers and reinvent history. Number 38, WWF In Your House was released in 1996 for PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and, believe it or not, MS-DOS. Unlike traditional wrestling games, this title had a cartoony arcade feel to it, in which a roster of 10 wrestlers, including The Undertaker and the British Bulldog, battled in customized rings and arenas that had Mortal Kombat-esque finishing maneuvers. Number 37, WWF War Zone was released in 1998 for PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and Game Boy. The title was revolutionary, as many of the 18-wrestler roster hadn't appeared in video games previously. In addition, there was a first-ever Create a Wrestler function, unlockable characters, and alternate outfits for each wrestler. Number 36, Pro Wrestling was released in 1986 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Not affiliated with any wrestling promotion, the graphics are quite advanced for their time. The game featured 6 generic grapplers, including the now iconic Starman, working their way up to face boss character the Great Puma. Number 35, WWE SmackDown Shut Your Mouth was released in 2002 for PlayStation 2 and is actually the first WWE title in history. This game has an extensive story mode, 2 different brands, and marks the first video game appearances of Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton. Number 34, WWF SmackDown Just Bring It was released in 2001 for PlayStation 2 and is the predecessor of the aforementioned Shut Your Mouth title. This was the first game to feature running commentary through matches, as well as 2 finishing moves for each wrestler. Number 33, WCW Nitro was released in 1998 for PlayStation and Nintendo 64. In addition to 16 playable characters, Nitro had another 48 that could be unlocked, including Bobby Heenan, Mean Gene Okerlund, and the staff from game developer THQ. Number 32, Natsume Championship Wrestling was released in 1994 for Super Nintendo. A variation of the All Japan game Zen Nippon Pro Wrestling Dash, this game featured 16 fictitious wrestlers based on AJPW counterparts and was graphically an improvement over many of the 16-bit wrestling titles at the time. Number 31, TNA Impact was released in 2008 for a variety of gaming consoles, and was the first and only title for total non-stop action wrestling. This title marked the gaming debuts of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and others, while introducing us to the character Suicide. Number 30, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 was released in 2006 for PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, and Xbox 360. This title improved the grappling system from the previous SmackDown generations and featured more than 60 current and vintage playable characters, plus a variety of classic arenas to compete in. Number 29, WrestleMania 19 was released in 2003 for Nintendo GameCube. A departure from some of the other wrestling games available at the time, WrestleMania 19 replaced the traditional story mode with something called Revenge Mode, with players fighting off wrestlers and security guards until finally facing Vince McMahon at WrestleMania. Number 28, the main event was released in 1988 as an arcade cabinet, featuring a wide variety of moves, especially for the time. The game had advanced graphics and look-alike characters for Hulk Hogan, Ricky Steamboat, King Kong Bundy, and Andre the Giant, all of whom competed in a tag team mode. Number 27, WCW vs. The World was released in 1997 for PlayStation and was WCW's first title in several years. The game pitted established WCW stars including Hulk Hogan, Sting and the Steiner Brothers against international competitors, which were lookalikes of the Great Muta, Tatsumi Fujinami, Sabu, Ken Shamrock, and others. Number 26, Showdown Legends of Wrestling was released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. The final chapter in the Legends of Wrestling series, this title added the Ultimate Warrior, Dusty Rhodes, Jake the Snake Roberts, and many other unsigned legends. Number 25, WWE Day of Reckoning was released in 2004 for GameCube. The title was a departure from the SmackDown vs. Raw series in terms of overall gameplay and its comprehensive story mode, the latter of which continued on into the 2005 sequel, Day of Reckoning 2. Number 24, AEW Fight Forever, released in 2023 for multiple gaming platforms, was All Elite Wrestling's console game debut. In addition to being the first major game appearance for many AEW stars, such as the Young Bucks and MJF, it also features minigames and even a Stadium Stampede simulation. Number 23, Superfire Pro Wrestling X Premium was released in 1996 for the Super Famicom and was easily the most advanced wrestling video game of that era. In addition to a complex series of submission moves, the title included lookalikes of Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, The Great Muta, Jushin Liger, and others. Number 22, WWF Superstars was released in 1988 as an arcade cabinet. Players could choose between 6 top WWF stars and create a dream tag team, going through other teams on the roster until facing the boss characters of Andre the Giant and the Million Dollar Man. Number 21, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2011 was released in 2010 for a variety of game consoles. It was the final installment in the SmackDown vs. Raw series, adding a WWE Universe mode with scenes that created storylines featuring Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Chris Jericho, and others. Number 20, Saturday Night Slam Masters was released in 1993 as an arcade cabinet and later re-released for several console platforms. The title is a combination wrestling and street fighting game and uses Street Fighter II-esque characters to enhance the action. Number 19, Ultimate Muscle Legends vs. New Generation was released in 2002 on the Nintendo GameCube. Based loosely on the Muscle series of toys and anime series, the title was a hybrid wrestling and fighting game, marrying cartoonish yet realistic wrestling action into a 3D format. Number 18, WWE All Stars was released in 2011 on a variety of gaming consoles. Graphically, the title was a huge change from the traditional SmackDown vs. Raw series with a more cartoony arcade feel and pitting current WWE stars against legends including Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, and Randy Savage. Number 17, WCW Mayhem was released in 1999 for the PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and Game Boy Color. The title was the first wrestling game to prominently feature backstage brawls during the course of regular matches and included a pay-per-view mode in which fans would receive codes to unlock events each week on WCW television. Number 16, WWF WrestleMania 2000 was released in 1999 for the Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Color. The title featured more than 50 WWF wrestlers, editable movesets, a comprehensive story mode, steel cage and first blood matches, and for the first time in a WWF game, the ability to swap the outfits from different players. Number 15, Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 was released in 2000 for the Nintendo 64. Using the same engine as the aforementioned WrestleMania 2000, the game features tons of Japanese wrestling and MMA stars, as well as legends such as Bruiser Brody, Giant Baba, and the Great Muta. Number 14, WWE 2K17 was released in 2016 on a variety of console platforms. The title was the 4th WWE game released by 2K Sports and featured the video game return of Bill Goldberg, improved customization options for characters, and better AI for multi-person matches. Number 13, WWE 13 was released in 2012 for PlayStation 3, Wii, and Xbox 360. It was the final game to be produced by longtime WWE contributor THQ, and it incorporated an Attitude Era showcase in which Stone Cold Steve Austin, DX, The Rock, and others were given storylines. Number 12, Def Jam Fight for New York was released in 2004 for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. The sequel to Def Jam Vendetta, Fight for New York adds different disciplines of fighting, including MMA, into the mix and adds the likes of Snoop Dogg, Lil' Kim, and Carmen Electra as fighters. Number 11, WWE 2K16 was released in 2015 for a variety of gaming consoles. This title boasted the largest roster in WWE history at the time, including different versions of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels, legends such as Rick Rude and Sergeant Slaughter, and even WWE Hall of Famer Arnold Schwarzenegger. Number 10, WWE SmackDown Here Comes the Pain was released in 2003 for PlayStation 2. The title included the Elimination Chamber, had a playable roster of more than 50 wrestlers, and gave the gaming world its first looks at John Cena and Batista. Number 9, Fire Pro Wrestling Returns was released in 2005 in Japan for the PlayStation 2. By 2007, it received wide distribution in North America as well, introducing many to the Fire Pro universe, which included more than 300 wrestlers, customization of just about everything, and even an exploding barbed wire deathmatch. Number 8, WrestleMania the arcade game was released in 1995 for, arcade cabinets, then released on several consoles as well. 8 WWF Superstars competed in over-the-top, cartoonish fighting action. Number 7, WWF Attitude was released in 1999 for a variety of gaming consoles. The sequel to the aforementioned WWF War Zone, Attitude featured an expanded roster, the first ever career mode, First Blood, and I Quit matches. Number 6, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 was released in 2005 for PlayStation 2. The second title in the SmackDown vs. Raw series, this game introduced a general manager mode as well as the ability to create your own entrance. Number 5, WCW NWO Revenge was released in 1998 for Nintendo 64. The top video game in WCW history, Revenge improved on previous titles by adding ring entrances, genuine WCW arenas, a referee, instant replay, and more realistic-looking finishers for the competitors. Number 4, WWF WrestleFest was released in 1991 for arcade cabinets. The sequel to the aforementioned WWF Superstars, this game featured enhanced graphics, cutscenes between matches, tag team and Royal Rumble modes, and the Legion of Doom as unplayable boss characters. Number 3, Fire Pro Wrestling World was released in PC in 2017 and for PlayStation 4 in 2018. The title is the most comprehensive Fire Pro game to date, featuring realistic and comprehensive wrestling action, increased customization, and an extensive portion of the New Japan roster. Number 2, WWE 2K14 was released in 2013 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The title was the first to be created by 2K Sports and was a complete overhaul of the popular SmackDown vs. Raw series. Features included a 30 Years of WrestleMania story mode and an opportunity to replicate The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. Number 1, WWF No Mercy was released in 2000 for the Nintendo 64. The title is considered to this day the favorite console game of many wrestling fans. Using an engine developed by AKI Corporation, No Mercy included an improved grappling style, more than 60 playable characters, 7 playable storylines, and additional customization, changing the game for the wrestling video game genre. What did you think? Which picks did we miss? Which picks did we misplace? Let us know in the comment section below, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on the Wrestling Merchandise and Memories YouTube channel.